Thank you so much, guys, for joining us for this panel. It's going to be very informative, very exciting, new things that's actually happening in the Middle East. So dealing with refugees crisis is a huge challenge. We don't need to say that, but it actually is. It should involve a lot of people from both sides, both the local and both the refugees community, to come together, to collaborate, to connect, spend some time, share expertise to solve those problems. Given the fact that picking your stuff and moving, this is a hugely brave and hard decisions you have to make as a refugees, to go to another country and start a new life. And for that reasons, we find no doubt why refugees become more entrepreneurial, more risk takers to do some challenges and start stuff up. Economic activities on the other side for the host communities is facing a huge challenge by building their own businesses, by building economic activity to support refugees, including restrictions on illegal concerns, limitation of movement, short of financials and non-financial services, the infrastructure itself, educations, and all of the stuff that we actually make it. With me today, with great speakers that I'm going to be hosting to talk more about different aspects and different diagrams. So we have people coming from NGO sites, big companies, international education companies as well. And on the other side, we have people who are supporting refugees and empowering them to become entrepreneurs, help people that innovating and enabling entrepreneurship refugee solutions. And we have more people helping to build the ecosystem around it and build the infrastructure in that. So we have like a lot of thoughtful and complete diagrams here. So at the beginning, I would love to start welcoming the speakers that we have. So we have Mr. Ahmed, as I mentioned, he's from Zain that's trying to get more work in the ecosystem. So at first, I would love to get Mr. Ahmed to tell us more what is stuff you're doing at Zain regarding to enable refugees to do more technology stuff, enable technology to serve the refugees.
Actually, we at Zain in general stand with the refugees, and out of the fact that we believe in the corporate citizenship, and corporates need to be a good citizen within their communities. I come from Zain in Jordan, and Jordan is hosting a big number of refugees, and in the history of Jordan we have been known of hosting a wave after a wave of refugees, and we got used to that actually. But the last, and we have been, as Zain, as a corporate, has been always involved. Lately, with the revolution of technology, that enhanced our involvement into supporting refugees in the region and in Jordan in specific. We sit in the support seat at the moment, where we are supportive to so many initiatives, organizations, NGOs who are operating on the ground with projects, different projects towards supporting and helping refugees. So we work with UNHCR, we do some work with UNICEF. We worked with MIT on Innovate for Refugees. We worked with Techfugees on a project in Jordan. Refugee United, we did a project with them as well when we created so many solutions and infrastructure and ecosystem that helps them to do the job. We supported RPK on training refugees and hosting communities on coding. We actually cooperated with Facebook and UNICEF and UNHCR to create free internet access for refugees in different centers in Jordan. And through our Zain Innovation Campus, we accommodate plenty of initiatives that is actually focused towards innovative solutions for refugees, and being in the telecom industry, being one of the main internet providers in Jordan, that helps us to be a big support for these initiatives in Jordan. And technology, as we all know, has helped refugees so much in facing their major challenge, which is being a refugee. So it helped them in education, it helped them in communication, it helped them in job creation, and we have seen so many success stories. So in summary, this is where we stand, this is where I come from. Thank you.
Interesting. How big refugees with education? And that's, we'll come to you, Katrina, to talk more about it. What do you guys do at MIT to support refugees at that side?
So basically, the MIT Enterprise Forum Pan-Arab, we're a nonprofit that is affiliated to MIT. And mainly what we're focused on is supporting entrepreneurs in the region, connecting them with the right people that are able to help them take their projects to the next level. And here comes the Innovate for Refugees initiative, whereby we thought to ourselves that as a nonprofit that promotes entrepreneurship and supporting entrepreneurs to come up with solutions for problems that community face, why not focus on the refugee crisis, and which is a big problem that not only the refugees are facing, but as well the economies of the countries that are welcoming those refugees are facing. Especially that refugees, there's a misconception that refugees, they're not very well educated, they don't have access to technology and so on. But in fact, so mainly we have a big portion of refugees, they don't, but some of them do. And that's why we came up with this initiative for the best technology solutions in response to the global refugee crisis. Natakallam, that pitched earlier, is one of the entrepreneurs that we supported. So that's from the entrepreneurship side. From the education side, we are, like most recently, we are the founding partner of the MIT React Hub, which is an education platform by MIT, the Refugee Action Hub. And mainly our first pilot project is kicking off in January in Amman. It's a 1-year-long MicroMaster's degree program in computer programming for 25 to 50 refugees. And basically the idea behind it is enabling those refugees to enter the workplace and contribute to the economy. So from one side, there's the education element to it. From the other side is connecting those refugees to the marketplace and mainly helping them find job opportunities in the market.
Interesting. That sounds really nice. And talking about the education, we know Jusward have been doing a lot of stuff in regarding education, but also entrepreneurships. Would you, Aziza, please give us more kind of the spectrum, what do you guys do to support refugees?
Absolutely. We started in 2011 before the refugee crisis as a network of Syrian expatriates. When we went down to Syria, we saw that Syrian youth had a lot of exposure and opportunity. So we wanted to connect the youth when the policies and the traditional education system was falling short. And we did that through technology. So I don't know if any of you were here yesterday in early morning, but Mike said, what do you do when you want to start an initiative? You create a Facebook group. That's exactly what we did. So we went out there, we created a group, and we said, who wants to be involved in mentoring Syrian youth to help them be exposed to education, academic fields, and help them in application processes. And we got a lot of interest. So we started hooking up mentors with mentees, global community with Syrian youth, to help them get exposed to education opportunities. Later on, we completed that program with scholarships, then career development, then a school for refugee children in Lebanon, and lastly, entrepreneurship.
That sounds amazing, but this is the questions. Always when we talk about supporting refugees, the first things came to our mind to support them with education, get them more to work, and the last things we expect from them to enable them to become more educational. So why you guys decided to move from scholarships and education and building refugee schools into call to entrepreneurship and get them more to work on that?
We realized the entrepreneurial spirit that Syrian youth had. They were extremely resourceful. You can only imagine as a Syrian refugee when you have electricity cuts, when you don't have stable internet, navigating those hardships, you've got to be extra talented finding your way around and creating solutions. So that entrepreneurial spirit, when we recognized it, we wanted to harness that potential.
That's great. And the same questions we can also ask you, Mr. Ahmed, to get to know more about why Zain take this initiative. Let's start to work with refugees to get them more into to learn how to code, enable them to start their own businesses and to start working on that. It's different spectrum of the stuff you guys doing with telecommunication.
To be honest, the number one need for refugees is to at least give them the feeling that they're not. Okay, help them to have a normal day-to-day life where they get the basic requirements that every citizen of every community would require, and that would be health and education, and be part of the surrounding community. And that's where the education importance came as the top priority, actually, because our region is a young region by nature. 50% of our region population is below 25 years old. That makes almost 60 to 70% below 30 years old. And the refugee community is the same. They're mostly kids or youth who are actually looking for education and looking towards building capacity and towards finding the right job and starting the first step towards their own, building their own future. As I told you, we got involved because of two reasons. One is our CSR direction as an organization and out of our corporate citizenship motive. Second, out of the role that we play in the country, because we are into the providing the infrastructure for all technology innovation. And the third was through our newly developed direction within the organizations, which is the corporate entrepreneurship responsibility, that we built it as a separate division away from the CSR to support entrepreneurs in Jordan. And we found actually a greenfield in the refugee community of so many who are actually really innovators, who comes out with an excellent innovative projects and ideas that are actually applicable. And at the same time, we found it also an opportunity to come up with initiatives where hosting communities need to come up with a solution towards helping the refugees in Jordan and worldwide. And it has been, to be honest, a successful journey with all the parties. We don't do anything alone, as I said at the beginning. We are on the support seat. We do it in partnership and cooperation with all parties who are on the ground to support refugees. We're more attached to the innovation and the technology platforms and the entrepreneurial and projects that comes out of there, because that we can support even better, and we can help them actually to be implemented on the ground. This is where we come from, and this is what we are trying to do in Jordan. I know there is a big challenge for the Jordanian government, because there is a commitment from Jordan to provide certain job opportunities for the refugees in Jordan, and this is requirements of the most of the donors actually towards the refugee camps in Jordan, creating job opportunities in a country where the unemployment is already so high that got us again into supporting job creation, utilizing the technology transformation and the evolution of technology.
Interesting. So I hear Aziza talking more about, that's obvious. They are enablers. They've been facing a lot of challenge and overcome those. They are more entrepreneurials. Same as Ahmed also talking about, there's a challenges there. We need to get them involved as well as the refugees, and we need to involve the technologies to actually have more employment, have more solution-based for the challenges. What was the main reason? You guys been doing a lot of competitions for technology for everyone.
Yeah.
And when was the time when you guys decided, yes, it's a time to have the technology solutions to go towards refugees?
Exactly. So, as I mentioned earlier, like the approach of being an entrepreneur is really to solve problems. And when you solve problems, you're solving a problem for, for communities that are facing it. When it comes to the refugees, like the refugees are not only facing problems, on their own, but it's impacting the economies of those countries welcoming them. So at the end of the day, coming up with technology solutions that are scalable, and sustainable on the long run, because a lot of the community partners, UN agencies are doing a lot to solve the refugee problem in a traditional way, so either donations. So we wanted to tap into more the power of entrepreneurship and technology for us to be able to support those refugees with these entrepreneurship technology solutions that are helping them live in those very hard conditions, whether when it comes to education, access to clean water, sanitation, access to electricity, and so on. And that's where the whole idea came about. And eventually what happened in the first edition, we really didn't know what to expect. We ended up receiving around 1,600 applications worldwide. 20 of them got qualified to Jordan, and we ended up awarding seven winners.
Can you share more what kind of backgrounds of those startups actually participated?
Yes, so from the 1,600 applications that we received, we had actually 15% refugees. Which was a good number for us to see because we really wanted to include those refugees in the process. And this year what we did is that we wanted to increase that number from 15 to 30%. So as part of the process, we introduced ideation and design thinking trainings for refugees in refugee camps to help them come up with those solutions. And basically eventually apply to the competition and start their own projects. Now, some of the ideas that participated in the competition, I can share with you. Change Water Labs. So basically, it's an interesting concept for evaporative toilet that flushes 85 to 90% of the daily household sewage.
It's really a real problem. If you went to refugees camps, this is a problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
Other solutions are focused more on access to education, like Natakallam with the Arabic language. Recycle Beirut, it's a social enterprise that solves both the waste problem in Beirut as well as the job creation, because refugees, and the unemployment rate among them. So basically this solution helps employ refugees so that they help in the collection and the processing of recyclables. So really, the variety of solutions are countless and varying among different industries.
That's great. As I say, you also work with a lot of startups, startups established by refugees or Syrian community, if we can say. Can you share more stories about that? What kind of ideas that actually came up with, and maybe we can see if there's a difference between what other people are trying to build and what the refugees community also trying to do.
Absolutely. What makes the ideas very creative is they transcend boundaries, borders, and obstacles. So as you know, the Middle East hasn't been as receptive. I don't want to generalize because Jordan and Lebanon have been very receptive to Syrian refugees. But then you have the other countries in the Gulf that haven't been very receptive, if not as receptive as Europe. But even when the countries are receptive, there are obstacles to refugee employment. The policies don't allow refugees to be legally employed. And therefore, entrepreneurs find their way around it, and this is what we enable them to do. When you can't find a job, instead of being a job seeker, we encourage Syrian youth or refugees to be job makers by building their skills to become entrepreneurs. These skills are transferable. They can take them with them anywhere, whether they're communication skills or building a business model, building a financial model, and whether it's just the basic soft skills that they grow from being entrepreneurs. They don't need to have a stable job to have that. The other issue that we've realized with Syrian entrepreneurs or refugee entrepreneurs, they are very creative in finding solutions to the problems around them. Now, their realities are very different than ours. The problems that we see around in our communities, like ride sharing, or whether it be Airbnb or the startups that Europeans come up with, are very different from the refugee startups that we see. So like Katrina said, there was a startup that was waste management because of the waste problem that Beirut has. This is not something that we would usually see in Europe. Another startup that was completely fascinating, one of our candidates came up with a solution which was a wearable that would detect if a bombing went off. It would send a text message to their friends and families with where they are, their location, which hospital they were taken to, and what their blood type is. Now, if this person was pitching to a European market or in Silicon Valley, it would be completely unimaginable, because those are not our problems. We don't have bombings going off and need to send messages to our families. And just in that sense, you can only imagine where their minds go, what they think is a solution to their problem. The entrepreneurship program, when we started it last year, 2 years ago, we did a holistic program that involved a competition, boot camp, online session, and mentorship. The accomplishments, believe it or not, in 3 years, we were astonished. We received thousands of applications. We've supported 67 startups, 136 entrepreneurs, and we've spent 200,000 in investment and funding. Now, what's really amazing, other than the numbers that we've accomplished, is that a little goes a long way with Syrian entrepreneurs and Syrian startups. So, for example, a typical startup in Silicon Valley or in Europe, you would need $100,000, $500,000 at least to get off your feet. But that's not the same case in Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Turkey, where $5,000, $10,000 goes a long way. It could get them running for a year. So just in that sense, their realities are different, their obstacles are different, their creative thinking is different, and investing in them is very different.
Sure. But also, what's also different is also the challenges. I know this myself because last year I did first comprehensive study that actually examined what's the entrepreneurs, refugees facing, and the people inside Syria, what kind of challenges they are facing in order to build the businesses, and there's tremendous challenge that we see. I would also love to get to more about, from your perspective, the challenges that people are actually facing. What do you think, Trina, like the main challenge for people to establish their businesses as a refugees, or maybe a refugee solution as well, because they're gonna face a lot of challenge. There is no support community. People are afraid maybe if we're gonna support them, they're gonna stay in the country, so they make a lot of legal constraints about this. Education itself, we're going to the camps and there's no education, or they don't know about entrepreneurship yet. They do it by heart, but they don't call it entrepreneurship. They don't call it business canvas model. They do it work. So what kind of challenge you guys face and how you overcome those?
So basically, I think a refugee entrepreneur faces like the problems that a general entrepreneur would face, like education, training, funding, mentorship, all that, but in a different way. So for example, like a refugee, as Aziza mentioned, like we want to encourage them, instead of being a job seeker, to be a job maker. And really, they don't know that they have this option. And mainly what makes an entrepreneur different is the way they look at the business opportunities in the market that they're at. So educating them to be and to have an entrepreneurship spirit, not only to be like job makers, but at the same time, if they end up joining organizations and to start like building their careers, to have an entrepreneurial spirit within the organization that they're facing. So education is very key. Not only entrepreneurship education, but technical education, which, you know, through the MIT React Hub, we're trying to tap into. Because at the end of the day, if we have a startup and then that needs technical requirements, you know, we need those technical skills, you know, to be able to complement the team that is actually executing. On the other hand, we have the infrastructure problem and the internet problem. So connectivity is a big issue. And when I talk about connectivity, I can talk about the affordability of that. So access to smartphones, access to internet. So that's from another side, and funding for sure. So funding of, you know, of those solutions by refugees. So I would say these are the challenges.
Wow, so many challenges, but hopefully we'll have people to actually work on that, which you, Mr. Ahmed. So there's no like marketing things that what I'm gonna say now. It's actually Zain Jordan is one of the very, very, very few big companies that working to find the solutions for refugees and to bring technology more to refugees in the Arab world, or maybe in the globe. We have Facebook do like little stuff, Google's doing a lot of stuff, but not someone really going in the ground, going to the camps, meeting those people. Why do you think they're not doing it? Why big companies not taking the initiative? We have the resources, we have the money, let's employ more refugees in our organization, let's train them, let's do it. Why they're not doing it? Why Zain did it? We get to know that, but why other people are not doing it? And what do you say to encourage them for that? Any stories, any numbers, anything you can share?
The thing is, to be honest, the engagement of the private sector to entrepreneurial and innovative ecosystems is still weak across the region, and not only in Jordan. As I told you, we had different motives to get involved. And the strongest one was our involvement in the entrepreneurial, as Jordan, I'm talking as Jordan, is our involvement in the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And the refugees is part of that ecosystem. Being a job creator rather than a job seeker, or rather than trying to find a job, is something we're trying to actually, a culture that we're trying to spread across the country. Everybody knows that everything is transforming today. Digitization is coming. Most of the studies says more than 50% of the current jobs in the world are going to disappear. 60 to 70% of the kids in kindergarten now are going to work in jobs that they don't exist today. Technology is getting into the lifestyle of corporates and individuals. It's getting into homes and businesses. And accordingly, the virtual world is evolving and becoming more competitive to the real world, where if you look at the younger the generation is, the more online they are, and they spend most of their time on a virtual environment, and that virtual environment is full of opportunities, full of projects. And I disagree that today I have not seen in my journey working with entrepreneurs, either from being refugees or within the local community, a good idea that fails to attract attention of funding, support, or even partnership. The number of funds that are available in the Middle East today, in my opinion, there is an excess fund that is available in the Middle East today to support good ideas. There are more people getting involved in supporting entrepreneurs, entrepreneurial ecosystems and entrepreneurs and good ideas in the Middle East. Middle East itself is attracting the attention of the big operators. We have seen Amazon coming into the region, and we have seen so many other big organizations looking at this region as an opportunity. We are the number 3 language. Arabic is the number 3 language on the internet. Today I was reading that we have 186 million internet users in the Arab world, and that makes the region full of opportunities. The need within the refugee communities is so high, and with the high need and the strong need comes quality innovation, okay? And this is known, and this is fact. So the innovation comes as a result of a bad need, and there is no bad need like being a refugee who wants to change the status and the day-to-day lifestyle.
Can I comment on
Please go ahead.
So first of all, thank you very much for being an example in the private sector that's helping entrepreneurship. We have a new movement in the Middle East by Fadi Ghandour, founder of Aramex, that's corporate entrepreneurship responsibility.
Fadi is my ex-boss, by the way.
Oh. Okay, so we know where the ideas are coming from.
I used to pay a salary because I was the cashier at the head office.
So corporate entrepreneurship responsibility means that every corporation is responsible to build the next generation of entrepreneurs. So like Mr. Ahmed said, in 20 years, we don't know what the jobs will be, and this is why Jasur is not involved in vocational training, but rather the technical skills that can be transferred everywhere. As a programmer, web developer, app developer, a refugee could transcend language barriers. It's like football. You really don't need to know the language or the surroundings of any country you're in. You can just play ball, and you're good everywhere, and this is the same with technical skills.
And I wanted to comment
on that?
on the funding part.
Yes.
So it's true there are a lot of funds in the region, but the problem is that when it comes
Arabs
to the
are
early
rich.
stage,
Arabs are rich.
Yeah, Arabs are rich,
So
but
we're hearing.
at the same time, they're not risk takers enough, I would say, because a lot of the solutions that are coming out of refugees and non-refugees at early stage, they're not really finding the right funding. Like sometimes an entrepreneur would need maybe $10,000, $20,000 to actually, be able to move their business idea to a prototype and then move forward. So I think the money is there, but we don't have enough risk takers to actually fund early stage ideas and startups and help them to the next level.
Sure.
And I'll have to recommend on
إيه أكيد.
my comment as well.
Enrique.
Sure.
What we need, what I said is that I have not seen a good idea that fails to attract the attention of funding or support.
That's
a good
true.
idea.
That's true.
Now,
The incentive
how
is
to
there.
support the entrepreneurs and the innovators, okay, to come up with a good idea. We have a good example, and Russia is sitting there can confirm what I say. When we started supporting entrepreneurs and startup projects, our first project we supported, we launched, we got a very few number. We trained them how to put their business plan and how to draft their idea. When we did the second one, because the preparation period was longer, the success, people actually, while they're in training, they put their idea into implementation. When we started, we used to take 2 out of 10 for implementation. Now we are actually giving a chance to more than 6 out of 10 for implementation. So building the capacity, the training, the skills on how to come up with the right idea that is scalable, that is sustainable, can always help the entrepreneurs and the innovators on attracting funding and support at the same time.
Wonderful.
ending
So we're about to finish, but before we finish, if we can use like 1 minute for all of us to actually say one call of action. If we want to leave the people who's sitting here listening to us with one things, they go with it to actually go and support refugee solutions, support refugees, what that would be in 140 character. What it's going to be for each one of you, what the advice you would give for people to leave with. Anyone can go first.
I can
know.
start. So there's been a lot of solutions built by the outside world to help refugees, but nobody knows their problems better than the refugees themselves. We just need to enable them to come up with, develop those solutions. So involve those that you want to help, the beneficiaries in the solution. Investing in them is reversing the conflict, in my opinion, the problems that are helping in Syria and elsewhere. They're very resourceful and you have a much higher return on your investment.
Awesome. Mr. Ahmed?
What I say, I asked a lady just before I walked in, she's into blockchain, and I said, what would you define blockchain? She said, it's a decentralized system, a payment system without the involvement of governments or central banks or whatever. And this is the power of internet. You can build decentralized systems. Community can support community now. And human can support human. You don't need to look at the government plan or the government direction or the government strategy. You can create your own group on Facebook and you can change the world and you can leave an impact in everything that you're trying to do. And believe it or not, there are so many people who shares whatever you're thinking of. Just try to find those people, come up with an idea, come up with an initiative, put it out, and you'll make a difference.
Enable refugees, collaborate with everyone, and decentralize. What's your call of actions would be for the people to support?
Yeah, innovate for refugees. So
Innovate.
that's our initiative, actually. And I was listening to the pitches, and I would encourage everyone like who has an idea, technology idea, to support refugees to apply to our initiative. There's just a 30-second video, I think, that will, right? No? So just innovateforrefugees.org. Please apply before November 27, and so that we can help you take your idea to the next level.
Oh yeah, so the call to action. Jasur is starting an accelerator in Lebanon soon.
Wow.
We are going to start the first of its kind hub for Syrian refugees in Lebanon. So for Syrian refugee entrepreneurs, because the efforts have been scattered and we're trying to centralize the efforts.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us in this session. Thank for the panelists. If you can give them a round of applause for their work. Tk you for your good join.